I'm going to introduce Heidi Heitkamp, which I think almost everyone knows, and my governor, Chris Sununu. Heidi will be the inquisitor on this panel. As you know, she's the director of the Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago, a board member here at the McCain Institute, and she was a Democrat elected in North Dakota, which is an act of bravery, which I'm sure endeared her and started the friendship with John McCain. So she will ask the questions. Come on up, Heidi, and then Chris Sununu, my governor, I get to brag on him just a little bit. I wouldn't say these things in New Hampshire because they might go to his head, and he's watching carefully. But he is ranked and polled after 4 two-year terms as the most popular governor in the United States, and also ranked as the most effective. Those usually are 2 mutually exclusive categories. But among the many, you have to keep in mind, it's a 2-year term. We keep a short leash. He has no line item veto. He doesn't get to appoint his department heads. He has 400 House members who all want to be governor, 24 senators who think they are governor, 5 executive counselors who act like they're governor. But under his leadership, we have been ranked the #1 state in the country for economic freedom, the #1 for economic opportunity, the #1 in child well-being, the lowest poverty rate in the United States, the 3rd best of the 50 states for economic growth. We have no income tax, no sales tax. Our in-migration comes from Massachusetts, where the Democrats want one, but Chris has prevented that. He eliminated our interest and dividends tax, lowered our business tax to the lowest level ever, all the while creating major initiatives, particularly some in the drug counseling and rehabilitation that are landmark programs copied around the United States. So go to it. Welcome to Sedona, Chris.
I can tell they're all rethinking their life choices right now. Right? This is great.
Well, happy lunch, and what a great program. And we hope that this will give us an opportunity to maybe talk a little politics. You guys have been talking a lot of policy, but you know, I think that we're on this stage together because we represent the kind of politics where you live in states where you have to learn to get along. And so, oh, by the way, that means you actually occasionally get things done. And they're done in a way that has some permanency because you have a broader ability. But I was thinking about this. I was thinking about John McCain. He's just an incredible leader. Joe Lieberman, Joe Manchin, who's here with us, maybe is eating right now, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney. They're all names that I think history will remember very fondly during this period of time. Because as this program is labeled, they believed in a cause greater than, which was your political ambition should not outweigh your commitment to something larger and bigger. Well, today on the stage with me is someone who kind of fits that bill, or at least has built a reputation for being a plain-talking, pretty
to a fault.
Yeah,
sometimes.
to a fault. A plain-talking politician who is, I think for a lot of people, think maybe the future of the Republican Party.
Oh, no.
So it's great to have you here.
There's a lot of us.
The first thing I want to talk about is your decision to endorse Nikki Haley.
Sure.
You know, obviously, the predominant viewpoint was get in line, let's get this over with, but yet you stepped in a state that was pretty significant as somebody who was enormously popular and made this decision. Can you walk us through the decision to endorse Nikki Haley and what the repercussions of that were?
I mean, and this is absolutely phenomenal. I've never been here, by the way. This is like my first hour in Sedona. Freaking ridiculous. It's great. I mean, it really is. Like, I'm going to be half doing this and half staring out the window, so I really am thrilled to be here. Look, so if there's
even better than New Hampshire? Just say it.
We don't have this. We don't have this. I would just say it this way. I'm super transparent. That's one of these are the ABCs of me, and it's something that the one piece of advice my father gave me. He said, just be yourself and be super transparent about it. So when I decide I'm going to do something, I let people know and why I'm going to do it. So the idea that I might vote for somebody for president in the primary, which I was obviously going to do, but not tell anybody who I was going to vote for, that sounded silly to me. So I said, when I figure out who I'm going to vote for, I'll let everybody know. So I went and I campaigned with everybody. And, you know, I thought about, for a little while, some folks wanted me to run early on, and I quickly put that thing to bed. And I said, the best thing I can do for the Republican Party is to be a really good host to the First in the Nation primary, where it's very important, make sure all these candidates have a chance to step up and separate themselves, because obviously I was working very hard to make sure the nominee wasn't going to be Trump. That was for a lot of us, that was the mission at the time. And so I campaigned with every single one of them. I mean, I was out with DeSantis and Christie and Nikki and even Vivek. I went to a couple events. Yeah, he's crazy, by the way. Like really, like I'm not joking crazy. Like he's like real crazy. Yeah, didn't care for, and he was probably one of the first ones. I'm like, yes, I'm definitely going to endorse one of these candidates, but not him. But just to stick it to him, you know, because he was such a jerk. But anyway, so I went out there, and my theory was this: I wanted to introduce him, and I'm not just saying this because we're here, but it's so apropos that we're here, because what Senator McCain did, he was the first one to do the real town halls in New Hampshire and ride the buses and go store to store and Dunkin' Donuts to Dunkin' Donuts and person to person, and he did it. We always had a tradition of that. But he separated himself from the pack. He started doing it back in 2000, and he really just did it so differently. And New Hampshire very much rewards that. We don't care how much money you have. We don't care what your name ID is. We're going to reward the candidate that just works their butt off the hardest and connects with us, not on their issues. We don't want to hear speeches and all that kind of stuff. You got to do that a little. But then it's always, what is your issue? What do you guys want to talk about? At the end of the day, Nikki just connected with folks better. I saw her as more genuine. I saw her connect better. I saw her as being able to pull away from the pack. She was working in all the states, right? Christie wasn't working in Iowa or anywhere else. Chris wasn't. And I said, man, that's a problem. We can't just be a one-and-done state. DeSantis pulled everything from New Hampshire at one point and put everything in, you know, and I have a long relationship with Ron, but his campaign just went, right? We all saw that for a variety of reasons, and the money was being wasted. But Nikki was consistent and always there and always on message, and she didn't waver and she didn't shy away from anything. And I just respected the heck out of it. So when I figured out I was going to vote for her, probably around Thanksgiving or so, I called her. I said, I'm going to endorse you, whether you like it or not. I'm going to tell people I'm voting for you. I hope it doesn't hurt. And she said, no, let's do this thing. And I said, if you do it, the one thing I give Nikki a lot of credit. At the time, she wasn't talking to the press. She really wasn't. She wouldn't talk to anyone that wasn't Fox News. In fact, none of the candidates really would. And I said, I have a reputation of talking to anyone and answering any question anyone will give me at any time. You need to be prepared to do that. And that was probably the biggest paradigm shift. When I endorsed her that night, I said, we're going to stand here and we're going to take every question the press wants until they go home. We're going to outlast, and her staff freaked out. It was great. Her staff was, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's what we're doing. I call the shots. This is what we're doing. And she was great at it. Her staff, I realized, oh my gosh, her staff is holding her back. But she's wonderful when she can talk and connect. Doesn't mean you say everything right and everyone's going to agree with every policy. But being transparent and open like that was a game changer. My goal was to knock everyone else out of the race by Super Tuesday. We knocked everyone else out of the race before New Hampshire. And that made it a real one-on-one race and made it a real choice. Now, she didn't win, obviously. We gave everyone a choice, and the Republicans didn't choose her. Got really close to New Hampshire. Couldn't quite capitalize on that momentum, but she's just a terrific, she's genuine. She's a real genuine person.
So I think when those of us who watched, it wasn't just Nikki being on CNN and MS, it was you, right? And you were a very effective spokesperson for this candidacy that not a lot of, I mean, it was really...
There were no other real surrogates.
It was insurgent.
That was surprising.
Right. And so I was teasing the governor that we all have that TV on in the background, right? And then you wait for somebody you actually want to hear what they have to say. So when Sununu would come on, I go, oh, this is going to be fun. And I would watch you, and I thought you were very candid and very open, as you are right now, about President Trump and what concerned you about a potential second term. And so when you then told the public after the primary season was done that you would vote for President Trump, I think that created a lot of like, huh?
Well, yeah,
I had always explained your decision there.
Well, I had always said I'm going to vote for the nominee. Yeah. I had always, that never wavered. And Trump became the nominee. And so, look, I don't backtrack on anything I've said. I think I don't like him. I don't think he's a good person. I don't like his style. I don't like what the things he says. I don't like the chaos. I don't like any of that. I'm shocked if anybody does, frankly. But at the end of the day, elections are about choices. You have A or B. There's no gray area. Either you vote for a Republican or you vote for a Democrat. And if you want to vote for Biden, God bless you. I don't judge anybody for that. And I would only ask that people don't judge the rest of America who are going to choose Trump. It's not 100. I'm not extremist zealot, right? And I think that's what the media is really missing right now. And some of you may see, and I got into it with George Stephanopoulos, a couple weeks ago. And he just kept asking the same question for literally 12 minutes. Yeah, but January 6th. I think January 6th was horrible. I think Trump incited an insurrection. I don't backtrack from any of that. I don't think it was disqualifying. Some people do, and that's fine. George Stephanopoulos did. And I said, that's fine, George. But stop judging everyone else that doesn't use that as a disqualifier. That's all I'm asking. If there's anything that is wrong in politics, it's we're judging. We're not disagreeing. If you're not with me, then I'm going to judge you, and you're out of my life. And relax. So I'm not using that as a disqualifier. And what I've realized, and for the media in this room, and this is where you're missing a huge opportunity, the big story isn't Sununu, the Republican governor, is going to vote for the Republican for president. That's not a story. The story is, why is Trump winning? Why are a majority of Latino voters right now going to vote for Trump? That shocks me. That really shocks me. Why do the polls now show maybe a higher number of African-American voters will vote for Trump and the Republican than ever before? Why is that? There's something going on in America, right, that drives that. I think that's a far more interesting and important journalistic story. And my message to Stephanopoulos was, look, you can say January 6th was a disqualifier. I don't agree. But you have to understand why it's not a disqualifier for a lot of other Americans. Inflation is awful. It is awful. And I'm sorry, if Secretary Yellen is here, I've been very blunt. I think Secretary Yellen and the Treasury have been awful with managing their words, where the markets go, trying to tell people inflation is temporary, trying to tell people that Bidenomics works. I'm sorry. Think of it this way. Is anyone in America watching the reality TV show of Trump and it's keeping them awake at night? Not really. But you know what keeps Americans awake at night? Not paying their bills, guys. Not paying the rent. Not being able to afford groceries. That's what they're voting on. They're voting on their stresses, their pains, the struggles their families are going through, what they're seeing at the border and how it's affecting their communities well out of Texas, whether it be in New York or Chicago or wherever. That's what they're going to vote on. And so all I ask is, and I think my message is, the media has to get out of the business of judging those who are going to vote in their own family's interest, because you should all do that. You should all be selfish with your vote. You should all vote for the candidate that's going to help you the most and sides with you the most and all that. I'll take a Republican administration over what's happening right now any day. And I think a lot of people would. And so I don't know where it's all going to go, kind of a coin toss right now, but I just think we're all getting to a very tough place where we're judging everybody for not being where we think that they should be. And I think if we pull down on that aspect of it, there's a lot of opportunity there to get back to getting stuff done and getting rid of some of the polarization.
Well, I want to turn to kind of the future of our democracy, which has been historically a two-party democracy. We aren't parliamentarian. We don't have coalition governments. We don't have unified government. It creates a messy system, but somehow it's worked for almost 250 years. But when you look at 70% of the people in this country are not satisfied with the choice that the two-party system has provided today, and it makes people cynical. So you, as a rising, upcoming Republican leader, and I think that's fair to say. Don't
I'm quitting in 8 months, right?
Yeah.
Be careful. So,
but I mean, you know, I think when people put on a list who is the future of the Republican Party, you're going to be on that list, right? Okay. So how do you fix the GOP?
So, and I mean this quite sincerely, I am much more optimistic on the Republican Party than the Democrat Party. And I can explain that very easily. So let's talk with 2 versus 3 party, right? Because obviously I saw Senator Manchin here and myself, we know the no labels people, and that was a very interesting idea. The reason third party, even though nobody likes the 2 candidates, the reason third party isn't going to work is very simple. People vote more out of fear than out of opportunity. I'm a Democrat that doesn't like Biden, but let me tell you, if I vote for that third party, Trump might win. And a Republican will say the same thing. Look, I don't like Trump, but man, if I vote for that third party, I might be giving it to Biden. So out of fear, I'll stick with the team. So unfortunately, the third party stuff just isn't going to work, especially with RFK Jr. It's just for a variety of reasons. He's not the right candidate. So that's not going to go anywhere. But let's talk about the parties. I can define the problem with the Republican Party. It's Trump, right? I mean, he really defines the problem. So you have people that are afraid of him, people that don't like him and will go get up on stage and hug him and the whole 9 yards and all that, and kind of afraid to kind of call it like it is. So when Trump goes, and Like, I don't wish anyone to die, of course, but at some point, Trump won't be here, okay? He's a cheeseburger away from a choke or a stroke. I don't know. So we'll see. One way or the other, he's not going to be here. One way. So at some point, this is where you turn up the television, I guess,
This
right?
is why he was so popular.
Look, these are the ABCs of me. I don't care. But this is the truth. At some point, Trump is not here. And the person that is the standard bearer of our party, that kind of governs, and I would say on the political side with fear, you better get behind me or else, that's gone. And there's no Trump light guys. See, Trump isn't where he is because of what he did as president. He's here because for 40 years, I mean, back in 1980, he was a household name. For 40 years, he built himself up in the American psyche one way or the other, with celebrity, with deal-making, with prowess, with being a philanderer and womanizing. That was his brand. Like, that was nothing new. I'm not saying it's good, but that can't be replicated. And that's a good thing, right? But here's the Democrats' problem. They have a real cultural problem. What you're seeing on the campuses right now, that is a real problem for Democrats. This wokeism stuff, where the average conservative Democrat, blue-collar, working-class Democrat is like, look, there are blue-collar, working-class American Democrats whose families built this country, manufactured this country, picked up arms, defended this country, and now a bunch of liberal elites in D.C. are telling them how to live their lives. They don't like it. If there's anything, I'm from the Live Free or Die state. I believe in this stuff very passionately. Live Free or Die is not 4 cool words on the license plate, although it is. It's really cool. But it is really how we live, right? Government, do your job, get out of our way, stop telling us how to live our lives, what words we have to use, and all that kind of stuff. So that's exactly a cultural problem, I would argue, is much bigger within the Democrat Party. And what you'll see is you'll still have the Matt Gaetz and the Marjorie Taylor Greens, these useless morons, but they're not leaders. They're not leaders, guys. They'll be kind of like the Squad on the Democrat side. They'll be out there, they'll raise money on extremism, but nobody's afraid of them on the Republican side. They're not doing a whole lot other than maybe what the strings they're pulling within the really screwed up rule system that the House has. Other than that, they really have no say. So there's no fear that those folks will soon define the Republican Party. We'll have our extremists, we'll have our moderates, we'll have this, we'll have that, and it'll go a little more back to the way it was. The Democrats are long term, the Democrats have a bigger problem, I think, a generational problem. And by the way, that's not just the Democrats' problem. I think it's an American problem. I think the parents, I hate what's happening on these campuses. I'm an Arab American, and I could not be more pro-Israel and disgusted by what's happening on these campuses. And I blame the kids, obviously. I blame the universities. But hey, as a parent, let's take some responsibility here. Where are all these parents watching their kids throw away Ivy League careers? That baffles me, by the way, but whole different story. But there's a parenting issue here that I think has to happen. But no, party-wise, we're going to be a 2-party system for a while. I'm much more long-term optimistic, as frustrated as I am with the leadership that we have in the Republican Party. It doesn't mean we're wrong. I think our policies are still right.
What policies would
limited
that be?
Government. See, this is what it would be. If I got a Trump administration, I can't stand him, but you know what? You know what I really can't stand? Which you guys don't never get covered in the news? The EPA right now is absolutely batshit crazy, excuse me, but it is. The policies they're putting down, it doesn't get any headlines, but the policies they just put out for certain water regulations. I'm an environmental engineer. They're technically not even possible. You have a Department of Treasury telling you that inflation isn't a big deal and it was going to be minimized. No, that's political speak. You have a Department of Education that right now, because of the FAFSA screw-up, if you're watching it, families all across this country, tens of thousands are losing all of their financial aid because they can't manage their system properly, and they want to, just abolish people's debt. That's bogus. Nobody likes that. So that's the type of stuff I'd rather have states in control and Republicans in control when it comes to the policy, not just the legislation, but the policy and the rules that are really impacting our lives.
So I have to maybe push back a little bit.
Of course, I would hope so.
Yeah. We're not in a debate here, but I do want to point out on an issue that is critically important, and certainly part of the McCain legacy is Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
The majority of House Republicans did not vote for Ukrainian aid.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that one.
And so when you
Biden
say,
has that one, for sure.
Say the long-term effect of loyalty to the former president, how much of that becomes embedded in Republican politics long-term? I think the concern in this room would be the America First movement, the retraction of American leadership on the world stage and what that means for the future of not just our democracy, but global democracy.
I think that's a terrific point.
Thank you.
No, it really is. Does your environment slowly affect your DNA, right, over time? Is this extreme environment for Republicans going to really affect our DNA? I think it will a little. You're absolutely right on that. And you're so right on Ukraine. The battle of Western freedom and democracy is on the line in Ukraine. I believe that very, very strongly. We either get that thing right, we defend Ukraine unequivocally, and we put our boot down and end this Putin nonsense once and for all. And that's where I think Biden is trying his best. Democrats are doing a very good job trying. And thank God they got all that passed. They at least got one package passed. But there's more than just money to help Ukraine, right? It's supporting NATO and all that stuff. Trump is off his rocker on that. And that does very much concern me. So, no, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to agree with Trump on a whole lot there internationally. I will say, you know, it's interesting. I think Biden is right on the policies a little bit more than Trump is, especially as you're dealing with Israel and Ukraine. For some reason, he's not seemed as strong across the world, right? Trump is laughed at a bit across the world. Biden is seen as weak across the world for a variety of reasons. So neither of them are really good. But on the policy side, yes, you got to do everything you can to back Ukraine. You got to back their play, and you got to not waffle on Israel. I think we all. I would think I'm speaking for a lot of people across America when Biden finally said something on the campus crisis 2 days ago, right? 12 days after it started, you know, he finally had the guts to stand up. I just think you got to be really strong on this. We are the world leader, and the world is begging for us to be the world leader. As much as they may complain about us at certain times, they all need us, and they all need us. The world needs a strong America. Strong America brings world peace. We know that, right? We got to support the military and all that. So, no, I think you're absolutely right on that one, and I do have concerns there for sure.
So this part of our program is always an attempt to be aspirational, a cause greater than. And when you look at our politics, which is fear-based, right? Yeah. It is not inspirational. It is not, you know, vote for me because I'm the greatest leader. It's you be very afraid of the other guy, which you already intimated. So how do you, once again, kind of take our political system and build a more aggressive, proactive agenda rather than reactive agenda? Let's put you in the seat as the nominee for president of your party.
Okay.
If I asked you that question, how are you going to inspire the next?
I would spend all my time recruiting other candidates. I would spend all my time finding the next generation of other candidates, not for president, but for Senate, for school board, right? You inspire people by empowering them, by telling them that their voice matters. So New Hampshire is very different, and the reason we're so different is because we have a very strong sense of local control. And I use this as an example. And I've had Republicans in my own legislature come and say, hey, you have to tell that school district X, Y, and Z. And I said, look, I don't like what the school district's doing, but local control stands. The parents know their problem more. The parents have a stronger voice and should have a stronger voice over what's going to happen in those schools than me as governor sitting in Concord. And we've stood true to that. Now, the same happens. And so what happens? People in New Hampshire, everybody runs for something. Right? Everybody is running all the time for something, whether it's selectmen or school board or whatever it is, because so much of control of, we don't have taxes, right? But we do have property tax. And I can't affect how your property tax is controlled, only you as a voter can. So you go to town meeting. It sounds corny to a lot of you, I get it. But believe me, you go to town meeting and you decide what potholes get filled and what the teachers' contracts are going to be. That's all done locally. So people want to step up and run for office to be a voice. I think nationally there's a huge opportunity, and if I had a leadership position, I would do that. I spend all my time, because we all know great people where we say, boy, that person would be a great congressman, or that woman would be terrific to run for the U.S. Senate, but they go, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics. When we get them involved, when we kind of show them a better path and how they can really lead, and show them that the inspiration doesn't come from me, but it comes from yourself, and doing what you can do for your community. Like getting back to that, I know it sounds corny and wholesome, but I'm telling you, that's what we have to do. Stop looking to Washington, D.C. for inspiration, because they're all terrible at it. I'm sorry. They are, as a collective, right? It's not happening. I think it's an amazing phenomenon, and I know it's going to sound like I'm just patting myself on the back, but when you look at the citizens of America, who they trust in government, they trust governors far more than they trust Congress. And that all happened post-pandemic, right? Because governors really took control. The one thing I will give Trump and really Pence the credit for this, they let the states figure it out on the pandemic. right? They didn't have a one-size-fits-all. They knew every state and the people would want something a little different. And I love that. I really do. And it's unfortunately some states didn't do as well as others, but at the end of the day, that's the most American thing you can do. And so returning that instillment of you guys have the say, and that's where the trust is. It's at more at a local level. If I was a national leader, I'd spend all my time trying to convince people, don't just listen to me, listen to yourselves, believe in yourselves. I do think the Department of Education should be quasi-disbanded. Look, just give the money back to the states. California knows what they need for their schools, a lot more than Washington does. And what I need is different than what Mississippi needs. Why don't we do that more? Why don't we believe in people in state governments and governors, Republican and Democrat, to find out how to spend those dollars? Instead, my God, the money that is wasted out of D.C. trying to make everyone fit into the same box. It's such a waste. And it builds disconnection, which ultimately builds distrust, which ruins transparency, which gets less people involved. So start at the top, bringing people up and telling them that they're in charge, not the guys at the top.
I want you to start getting your questions ready, but I have one last one for you. Is there anything you said during the primary campaign that you regret?
Oh, great question.
How many of you think he regretted anything?
I don't think I did. Regret?
Regret. You could take
like,
that.
So on the Trump thing, like I always said I was going to support the Republican nominee, and I am. Not to be too I'm not just trying to make a joke. I probably introduced some of the candidates and was a little effusive with praise on some of the Republican candidates when I thought they were complete schmucks and didn't deserve to be in the race at all. But that was my job, to make sure that they all had a good chance. And so I tried to pump them all up. Until I kind of narrowed it down and chose, and it was between Chris and Ron and Nikki. I gotta say, Ron, people give DeSantis a really bad rap for a variety of reasons, and a lot of it's self-inflicted, of course. But he did a great job in New Hampshire. He got better on the campaign trail. I was surprised his numbers kind of kept going down. I thought he was working hard in Iowa. He started connecting more. He has a little bit of a hard time connecting with folks sometimes, and maybe that wasn't it. But no, I don't. Look, maybe people always want me to write a book, and I think books are, I'm going to write a book. You know what it's called? Never Buy a Book from a Politician by Governor Chris Sununu. That's my book, about the hypocrisy in politics and government, right?
Or Christy Nome.
Yeah. Christy Nome should have listened to that, yeah. Poor cricket. Poor cricket. Hey, can I ask you a quick question? I'm totally going off script. What is with the 12.5-mile-an-hour speed? What, have you guys noticed that?
I think the mayor's here somewhere, isn't he?
Why is the speed limit at this resort 12.5 miles an hour? Is that a joke that I'm not getting?
So you don't hit and run over people, for goodness sakes.
12.5? What's with the fractions? All right, I'll ask Doug Ducey. Maybe he'll know. I don't know.
Ray.
I'll just talk.
Yeah.
So you, on Stephanopoulos in here, you confirmed that you think Trump is an insurrectionist, and then you said just
he
now...
caused it. Well,
caused it. Right.
I think of the words technically, I think I said...
Provoke.
He provoked it or something like that, sure.
And you said that you don't think that's disqualifying to be president. So I'm curious to know what personal transgressions would. Like, in other words, would being convicted of multiple crimes be disqualifying, that you'll have the political courage to walk across the line?
Yeah.
Or is it the proverbial he needs to shoot someone on Fifth Avenue before you change?
No, it's not that. It's, again, with me, I'm and you might disagree, I'm removing him from the equation a little bit. Because, look, I think Congress and the president get nothing done. I think the administrations get everything done. I think what happens at the secretary level is so critical. I mean, they are making policies and rules every single day that affect every one of your lives, and it never hits a headline, and it never even crosses the president's desk. That's what I'm most concerned about. I'm concerned about culture. I'm concerned about what's happening on the universities. I'm a pretty moderate guy, and I hate this wokeism stuff. It has gone way too far, and I think most people can agree with that. It's just gone way in this cancel culture stuff. That's a cultural problem. So it's, I guess, again, we can disagree on that. Look, no, I'm not going to get up here and defend Trump. I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to really work hard and say, you have a choice. Either you're with Biden or you're with Trump. And I got in a little bit of an argument with someone last night because I don't agree with I'm not going to vote. That is the most un-American thing I've ever heard. And you might disagree with that, but I'm pretty firm on that. There are so many people on this planet that do not have the right to vote, that do not have the opportunity to choose. You got to make a choice. And that's what elections are, man. They're choices. So I might be 51-49 with a Republican. I'm 90-10 with a Republican ticket. I'm 51-49 with the guy that's at the top. And I'm pretty selfish about it because I'm not going to run for governor. I have another great candidate or two, going to want in my seat. Trump loses in New Hampshire by 10 points again, I probably lose the governorship. And New Hampshire has an income tax, and Democrats control everything. So I need the ticket to do well. I need that guy to hold up, do well. And no endorsement, whether I vote for him or not, nobody cares. There's no endorsement that helps or hurts Trump. We've all made up our mind about him, or we will by November 5th, right? So I don't think what I say really matters. Like I said, it's interesting that you asked me the question. We can talk about it. I think it's fascinating when you ask the average Latinos today, right? Democrats thought they were going to have that wrapped up 70-30. They're losing 57-43. Why? Why don't any of those Americans? So, and I said to Steph, don't get mad at me, because when you get mad and you judge me, what you're really doing is you're judging the other 51% of America. If you notice, I kept saying that. Buddy, you're married. You're upset with the 51% that if he were to win today, it's probably barely my... Yeah. So that's really the issue, I think, that's standing.
Yeah, and I would point out that 40 of the 44 cabinet members have selected not to be with President Trump.
His old cabinet.
His old cabinet.
Yeah.
So when you talk about
fine.
the administration, well, the people that he brought into the administration haven't been particularly favorably inclined to get out and campaign for him. So just want to make that point. Other questions? There you go. Kelly?
There you go. What do you consider the value of character and judgment for the presidency?
Yeah, well, Trump might be the worst of the worst, but let's not put a whole lot of presidents up on the character scale, okay? I mean, we can start going down a list. It ain't a pretty picture when it comes to a lot of character issues. I have a lot of issues with Biden. I have a lot of issues with Clinton. I have a lot of issues with a lot of the presidents. So I'm not discounting it, but I am about results. The American people want results. I have a job as governor simply to get better results today than I did yesterday. And that's all I care about. And if I can get better results with the Republican administration, that's what I'm voting for.
Does your character and your judgment inform how you do your job?
I think it informs the public, and it allows more to get done. I would say that. The biggest problem with Trump's character is that basically no Democrat will ever vote for anything, even for president, no matter how good it is. He's really created a divided line, so bipartisanship is 100% out the window. So it all gets locked up, again, which is not a whole lot different than what you have today. You got a few things that slip by. The bar is set pretty low in terms of passing anything. But I think in terms of character, that's really the biggest problem that leadership brings, and I've seen it in governorships or presidencies, where it prevents you from being successful more than anything. At the end of the day, people want results. They want to change. And they're really upset with the way things are right now, and that's just it. You know? And people are going to vote that way. So you can wish it not. And again, I don't mean to be a broken record. Just don't judge people for the way they're going to vote, and don't judge people because they, and I said this to Stephanopoulos, man, he makes $15 million a year. He gets to go off and live in his house mansion in Greenwich. He has no freaking idea what inflation is. I mean, you can't feed a family of 4 at McDonald's for under $45 right now. That's real, right? Credit card debt, all-time high. Like, that's what keeps people up at night. And I just think people have to take a better look at what's happening on the ground because of this administration and unwillingness to deal with those issues. And people know it's a choice when it comes to the vote.
And I think sitting here at the Sedona Forum that was basically fashioned by John McCain, I think we like to believe in this room that you don't have to choose between good policy and character. That character can drive good policy, and character can create can create the world that people make the tough choices. Yeah. And one thing, Governor, I think you've made tough choices being in your state, and I certainly have had to make some tough choices being in a state where voted the fourth highest vote that President Trump got in 2016 was in North Dakota. Just saying.
And I think you bring up a really good point, because look, Biden is a nice man, right? He's a really, really nice guy. And remember, he was the most moderate of all the Democrat candidates. He was voted as the moderate. Great, he's gonna get stuff done, bipartisanship. The only reason a politician's poll numbers drop, there's one reason. You haven't met the expectations of those that voted for you, right? So when his poll numbers are plummeting, now worse than Trump's, that means he hasn't met the expectation. We wanted you as a moderate. I mean, I didn't vote for him, but the American people as a whole wanted him as a moderate. He didn't govern. Wanted to get better results. They're not better. Wanted to give us more opportunity. It ain't happening. Wanted us to give us more economic and personal freedoms. It's not there. So a lot of his voters said, okay, you're not what I thought you were. So the polls dropped. That's the only reason it happens. He's got great character. But at the end of the day, it's about choices that I go back to, he's that bad of a president that Trump is beating him. I mean, he's that bad, guys. And it's a shame. It's a real shame, because I don't want anyone to be bad as president, right? We don't want that.
Take another question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Governor, I just want to understand a little better the policy choice that you're drawing here, because you've mentioned your concerns about culture and colleges, but those are not presidential responsibilities.
Sure they are.
And as a small government Republican,
Yeah.
you would say those are state or those are civil society issues. The one you did mention was foreign policy, and Ukraine, NATO, Russia. Those are ones you've just said you think Biden has done a really good job. So I'm curious, given...
Policy-wise, I agree with his more than
all right,
yeah,
so
sure.
then that's the heart of presidential responsibilities. Why does that lead you saying you would vote for the person whose policies you don't agree with on foreign
domestically,
policy?
look, boy, I know we're going to be like on the Trump train here, but look, domestically, Biden is a disaster. And you can say he has nothing to do with the campuses. Of course he does. Those are his liberals, his progressives, his party base, his uneducated voters that are really wrong and filled of anti-Semitism and hate. That isn't a minor thing. That is a huge cultural problem within the Democrat Party. And last time I checked, he's the head of the Democrat Party. Yeah. So that is a big problem. And I think he does. I think we all do. I said even as parents we do, right? Take the politics out of it. I'm more worried about the cultural issue, but the politics are really bad for Biden on that. Look, the border, guys, the border isn't some minor issue. All 50 states are seeing it. And the biggest reason Biden has blown it is because he said it's not a problem, it's not a crisis, it's not a big deal. And then 3 years later said, oh yeah, I guess it's a problem. But it's the Republicans' fault. Nobody buys that. Nobody thinks the border crisis is the Republicans' fault. It's clearly his policies, right? Not a single law about the border has passed since he's been president. So it's all his policies, and most of which he signed in the first 100 days. So yes, on the foreign stuff, I probably agree with Biden and his strength on Ukraine and his a little slow to the gate, but semi-standing with Israel. But domestically, it's a disaster, and folks are going to vote on a domestic agenda and a domestic culture that they're not happy with.
So I do have to just take a point of personal privilege. There was a bill that a dear friend of mine, James Langford, risked his entire political career to do the right thing, and only one person stopped that on the border. So
yeah,
can we just say that influence?
But that didn't change anything on the border, right? The border crisis. The number of people jumped 5 times on day one when Biden came in simply because of policies he signed. You can't blame Republicans for that. That's like looking at California and saying, yeah, that homeless crisis, we all have a problem. No, every Democrat policy is driven that terrible homeless crisis in California. You can't blame a single Republican for that, right? Are they not fixing it as fast as they could? Maybe, but at the end of the day, you can't. This is all, and that American people understand that. So I don't think I'm saying anything completely foreign here, guys. It's pretty obvious. And if it wasn't, Biden would be up by 20 points, and he's not. So I'm not here as some sort of apologist for Trump. I think he's a terrible individual, right? But I'm asking people to look that people vote with results. They vote on what's going on in their daily lives. And it isn't just a couple of people that actually have the courage to talk about where they're going to vote that is going to impact this election. It's what's really happening in our communities where people get frustrated.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question.
I'll pay you $1,000. I don't have any money, but I will. As a good politician, I'll promise you something I won't deliver. I'll pay you $1,000 to ask me a question that doesn't have to do with the presidential election. Holy cow! Give me a break. Yeah. Cookie's great. I have the worst eating habits in COVID. It was all coffee, all chocolate. I never fixed myself.
Anthony.
I'm here for the ratings, man. I'm here for the ratings. I just want you guys to say, man, we got to go back next year. What other crazy person they got to put on stage? Yeah, sure. Look, nobody likes war. Nobody likes war. Nobody likes any of that. But make no mistake, most of these kids on these protests couldn't even find Gaza on a map. They're not getting their information from education. They don't understand the heart of this issue. Most of them think that Jews had invaded Gaza and Israel had invaded Gaza beforehand. That's nonsense, right? And this is not a difference of policy. Is Hamas looking for a policy change? Hamas very openly says, we want the eradication of every Jew on the planet. Okay? This is about a Holocaust. Make no mistake about it. And these young people have been manipulated into literally chanting death to America, death to Israel, and Hamas are just freedom fighters. They're not a terrorist organization. Are you crazy? That is nuts. They want to kill every American, they want to kill every one of you, and they want to kill every Jew, and that's it. And, God bless them, they're pretty open about them. I think they're nuts. So this is about stopping terrorism in the Middle East that would ultimately come here and affect this country. And this is about standing up. I passed a law in New Hampshire that says every kid, every public school kid has to learn, we have to teach about the Holocaust. We rarely do that. I passed that about 4 years ago because it's at the heart of polarization and divisiveness and all of this. If this was based on policy, we could talk about it. If it was based on, if it had some substance in education and these young people knowing what the heck they were talking about it. And standing up for your First Amendment, I have no problem with their voice. First Amendment, peaceful protest. But this country, starting in around 2020, and I blame the adults, by the way, not the young people, said it's okay to violate the law, to cause violence, to cause damage, as long as it's in the name of social justice. That's wrong. That is 100% wrong. We are a nation of laws. So the issue I have over most of this is the fact that they're breaking the law, they're destroying institutions, and they're tearing down people's faith. I mean, who wants to go to those schools now, right? This conversation has to happen, but in an educational, constructive way in the classroom. I think the president of Dartmouth in New Hampshire, I give her a lot of credit. She's been on the job less than a year. She's done a phenomenal job making sure that everyone has a say there, right? There's certain places that are doing it right, and a lot of places are doing it wrong. So it's okay to have the discussion, but it has to be based in conversation. It has to be based in education. It's not just about, well, this side has more dead than that side, okay? That was their 9/11, guys. Imagine within a year of 9/11, the whole world just tried telling America how we should and shouldn't respond. We have every right to respond the way we want to respond when a country gets attacked in an unprovoked way like that. And it wasn't a minor attack. We all know what happened. Women raped and burned alive and murdered on television, dragged through the street. This wasn't this wasn't minor here. So it was unprovoked. It's all based in a non-education. It's not just about, well, this side has more dead, so I guess we'll support them. They're backed by terrorists. Make no mistake about it. And I don't think we should be any part of, and our kids shouldn't be any part of that.
Yeah, we're running out of time, but I want to just conclude with a thought where you said you have to not just assume that every person who's supporting Trump is like this, right? But you also have to assume not every student on a campus has been brainwashed.
Oh, no, definitely.
I've met a lot of the students, and so I'm not defending it. But I'm saying, one of the challenges that we have in politics is the challenge of the all. We lump everybody together and try and characterize or categorize people as X when they're much more nuanced. And I think you and I, coming from the states that we're from, understand that. I hope you've enjoyed.
I haven't. My God.
You can tell why I turn up the volume and listen to what the governor says. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your program.
Good luck.